Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me, I have Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, and Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. Well, gentlemen, we have had three guests on the program. Dr. Uju Agamo, who commented on the jailbreak in Suleja, Niger State. 105 of the inmates escaping after, rainfall, some mild rainfall, which resulted in the perimeter fence collapsing. And now the minister is saying they will build new facilities and all of that. And then, of course, the Justice Sector Reform Workshop in Abuja, where the plan is to make sure that the entire value chain in terms of justice administration is upgraded and the omissions are addressed. Then, of course, we had Ambassador Jibril Chinade talking about 30 years after the end of apartheid, a historic moment that was celebrated yesterday at the Union Building, the seat of government in South Africa. And then, of course, the third issue, the ongoing tussle between former governor of Kogi State, Alhaji Yahaya Bello, and the EFCC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Those are the three issues so far. Let me start with you, Professor Kila.
Yes, I think let's start in the order in which you have stated them as well. Definitely we need a prison reform. The names have been changed, but the structures and infrastructure need to be reviewed. I think our prisons are mostly not fit for purpose. They're overcrowded, and the processes there are not up to date with the times we live in. A lot needs to be done in terms of helping rehabilitation, in terms of vivibility of the place, and in terms of, let's say it, of having a rule of law and equal justice for everybody. Too much leakages, too much preferences, they're happening there. And we need more space. I think, in this country, given the population, we look at the population of Nigeria to the number of prisons we have, it's easy to see the lacuna. It's a welcome development that they're planning to build more, and hopefully they should make it more modern and more functional. That is the hope one has there. The judiciary needs to be functional. I think judiciary really needs an overhaul, but it's not something you do externally. They need to look at themselves. Unfortunately for judiciary, it has been brought too much at the center of so many things, from election to corruption to administration to labor law. Somebody might say that is their law, but I think it is becoming too present. And when an institution is too present, it risks being judged as well. That is what happened. I think, for me, the major issue the judiciary has in this country is that it has lost a lot of credibility, rightly or wrongly. It has credibility issue. It has efficiency issues as an arm of government. And I also think it suffers from transparency or commonsensical understanding of matters. There are too many judgments that people cannot understand with common sense, and that is not good for justice. So I think that is something that needs to be done. On South Africa, which I follow the matters keenly, I do not share the kind of prudent, temperate view of the ambassador that just sees it as a continuum, a reform that takes time and things are going the right way. I am very disappointed in the way South Africa has gone through, and there's a lot of issues responsible for it. There are internal issues and external issues. I think South Africa, just like Nigeria and most African countries, has not lived up to its potential. Unfortunately, South Africa is showing us the difference between formal freedom and material freedom. People say freedom does not mean economic well-being, but it's a sine qua non element for that to happen. And South Africa has not lived up to that. Externally, part of the reason, you talk about xenophobia and the fact that a lot of South Africans do not remember the role that other African countries have played. Let's start Nigeria, that played a very major role. One of Nigeria's, as the ambassador hinted at, but for people who like history watching us, one of the first major roles that Nigeria as an independent country played on the international continent that really caught the attention of the world was the position of South Africa. That was a major thing. And there's been a continuum, from head of state to Ministry of Foreign Affairs. One must, of all the names I've not mentioned, I think one must also mention the name of Professor Bolaji. Akinyemi, Professor. I still remember his speech. You know, while the rest of the world is doing this, it will remember that we took this part. I still remember his exact speech on my head when it was done then. And but the problem is that it is not out of the benevolence of South Africans or their sense of history that they recognize the role of Nigeria. Nigeria has missed the opportunity of what follows after intervention. There is a lot of literature on this, and there should be more, on how Nigeria missed that chance. If you free a country, like US did with Iraq, you must put things in place where your impact will be felt, where your country and your people will benefit. It has to be material, it has to be symbolic, and Nigeria just did not follow that. So it's a lesson to learn in international relations as well on that. And South Africa needs to find a balance to deal with the minority that benefited from apartheid and those that did not benefit. It's a very subtle thing because, you know, let's face it, when we give it a closer look to the personality, to the legend of Nelson Mandela, there's a lot of time that some of us think that Nelson Mandela became a global icon at the expense of the people of South Africa. There are things there that are not very straightforward, which those who are interested should have a closer look at. Back home on the Yahaya Bello issue, I think friend Zako that just left has given a very informative, you know, and very enlightening matter on the situation of justice, not the individual. The issue of Yahaya Bello, I think, should cause everybody to reflect because we're dealing here with fact or alleged fact, process, and system. And I think so far, so bad on many of the part because if they say somebody stole 80 billion naira, you know, your instinct to say, thief, get him or get the money back. But for a government institution to be able to do that, it has to follow all the right process. And it appears to me that the EFCC is not living up to expectation on this. It's not doing all the right thing possible. Now, this is I'm told that the head of the EFCC is a man of God and, you know, the very intelligent man. Let us assume he's a saint and he's doing it for our benefit. I am concerned what happens after him. It's somebody who's not a saint like him gets there and they don't follow the rule of law. It is my view that the state agents, for them to operate, needs to operate in a way that you cannot fault them. I think EFCC agents, EFCC lawyers, because they have a track record which is not good of the cases they lose in court, need to really go back to look at themselves. It's a matter of efficiency we're looking at. And I think they lack that. From the side of the Bello people, what I'm seeing, what I'm getting is that they keep saying that these people did not invite us informally before they came to try to arrest or lay siege. The warrant they got on the day they went to lay siege in the place came later after they were there. And those are not kind of things you should be doing in a state of the rule of law. It should not be too much for them. And, you know, it's really silly, this idea of saying that when Abuja, we can't be called in other place. Why are you able to investigate something that happened in other place, rightly said? So that doesn't make sense. I think people need to really get a better understanding of this so that the state can be well served. It is important for our viewers to remember that EFCC is an investigative agency, not even prosecution. Because when they get to court, they have to get a lawyer to prosecute. And if we want EFCC to function well and Nigeria to fight the case of corruption, the first thing we need are agencies are people who are honest and efficient in what they're doing. And I think that so far is not playing well. And we have to be very careful because we're talking Yahaya Bello today, it might be somebody else tomorrow who might be a victim or who might exploit the inefficiencies of EFCC. So I think we have to be careful. I'll stop on that.
Okay. Professor Aworawo, your turn.
I would say I was speaking from the last to the first. In fact, if my time expires on the first, I'll be satisfied. Yes, this last one, because I want to use it to explain several things, you know, affecting the Nigerian state and education. The 80 billion allegation against Yahaya Bello, that one is before the court. It's sub judice. They have to go and prove it. But there is something that is very clear, and that is that, and we make this point before, the EFCC needs to follow the procedure to be able to win cases. He needs to follow the procedure to be fair. He needs to follow this procedure to conform to what the law says. The chairman of EFCC, in the course of the week, said he called Yahaya Bello. He respected him as governor, invited him. And when the governor said, he gave some excuses, he even gave him some leeway, come through this other way, door, so that journalists will not surround you and all that. And he still gave some other excuses. I mean, but why not write formally to start with, before even calls were made? And when one order of court was got, why not go to the appeal court, the higher court, so that two courts of the same equal, this will not be, one will not be standing like an appellate court on the other. These are very simple things, and he's a lawyer as well. So these are very, moving forward, we hope that EFCC is listening to all the things we are saying and will do better in all of this. But as an academic, I don't look at things from only one side. That is settled. The case of 80 billion is sub judice, has to be proved. It has to be. But one thing that is established, which I want to use to explain several things affecting us in the Nigerian state and education, is this payment of school fees to the American International School in Abuja.
760,000.
Yeah, it's even more than that, 800 and something. They said they've taken some charges out of some. Their consultancy out of it. So actually 820 or something, $1,000.
Okay.
Spent in Nigeria. Of course, that one, it is scandalous that a governor in a Nigerian state is paying dollar to a school in Nigeria for his children. That's one. Two, the money was paid 2021. So those who have been paid for 14 years to 2035. To cover the fees of 5 children for that period, nearly $1 million. Now, EFCC said that money was paid from Kogi account to a bureau de change, from where they got the dollar and then paid to the school. Somebody has come to speak. I'm speaking about this because somebody has spoken from Yahaya Bello angle to defend this, so we can speak on that. That yes, they have always paid money from for the children and all that. But one thing he did not say is that they always pay that money in advance. He said before Yahaya Bello became governor, they have always paid like that. If they had paid in advance before Yahaya Bello became governor, they would not need to pay again for 14 years in 2021. So if they were paying before, they were paying year by year. But this time around, they paid for 14 years. Now let us sit down and reflect. What is the state of schools in Kogi State? That Yahaya Bello's children cannot attend schools in Kogi State, but he had to look for something close to $1 million to pay for them 14 years in advance in Abuja. People are talking about procedure and all that. Yes, EFCC must do its work. Doesn't that sound immoral?
Yeah, I think that's an indictment of our political
Doesn't
class.
that sound immoral? And it speaks to the selfishness of politicians in Nigeria. So extremely so only my children, I take care of them for 14 years in advance, then the other Kogi children can as well go to hell. I visit Kogi State. If you see some of the schools, people will study under trees.
But I think, Prof, one thing must be said. It is true that we have to be careful. If we limit it to the political class, which is very guilty of it, we risk not solving the problem. It's an elite problem in Nigeria. Yes. This is a country where generally people do not trust the system of health, of education, and instead of making sure it works, they simply save
that's exactly the point I'm making.
But I think to make your point better, we need to look at the elite generally.
Yes.
Because if we limit on one, we risk excluding Yahaya Bello,
like,
then Ruben Abati, exactly.
Elites like
then people like
President
President Company. Then people like Ruben Abati will be free. So let us include people like him too and investigate if your children abroad. Are they going to
I'm saying this because I also know of some
people
elites.
are guilty of it.
When I was in university, Aikomu's daughter was our colleague there.
Okay.
Yes, at the University of Lagos.
Yes.
Yes, and we also know of some important personalities in government whose children school here. The
university you attended in the 20th century.
Exactly.
This is the 21st century.
A few years ago.
Now,
that is one. Now, I'm saying this because I want to look into extray the education sector generally. Yes. Now, in the course of the week, the Minister of Education came and said, if you are not 18 years, you can't enter secondary school. I can't make sense.
No, you can't enter university.
You can't enter university. You can't enter university.
Yeah, that's a
Please check the records. Those who have scored the highest
Well,
in UTME
Yeah.
in the past 10 years,
Yes.
16, 17, this last year, Kamiso Chukwu Ume, 16 years.
Yeah.
The Oluwafemi Oshitade, 16 years. Oshitade has now gone ahead to do SAT and score 800 in mathematics, 760 in English, and has got scholarship 3.5 million. So, and that same person, if this law they are trying to bring, it becomes law, that person will not even qualify to write UTME in Nigeria. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. And the other side to it is that we are talking about capital flight. Many parents who will have allowed their children to school here, who want their children to be fast, they will simply take their whatever naira they have, change to dollar and send them abroad. In addition to the fact that when you are insisting on 18 years, can you guarantee that they will graduate in 4 years? Those we are teaching now, they have been there for 6 years. So if you come in 18, you are supposed to leave 22. The school has added, the government has added 2 years to you. And in any case, 1.9 million people wrote JAMB this thing. Only about 400,000 will enter school. So about 20% of the total will enter school. Yeah. The early they start, you do no harm. When they are 16, you're already mature enough. They already made a law to make it 16. So even the parents are pushing the children, which is the excuse they are giving, it has limits. They can't enter before 16. Anyway. 16 is just fine. If you say anything more than that, say 18, you just plunge the place. In fact, you will now create a
I think the minister did not consult before doing it.
It is too self-evident. And they say ASU president also supported. I disagree with him on this. He said the more mature they are, the better. The younger they are, the better. The more mature they are, the more you have courtism and all those things in school. So 16, if it is 14, who can shout, they will be too young to take care of. But 16 is what the law already says, which already limits how much the parents can push the children. 18, so you mean all these bright children who have been scoring highest in JAMB in the past 10 years, they wouldn't even qualify to write UTME?
You want to hold them back?
The minister should pay attention to, I'm just giving an advice.
Yeah, to data.
There are 21 million children out of school. Yeah. It's a crisis. Nigeria has the highest on planet Earth. Yeah. You should call a summit or a colloquium of commissioners of education in Nigeria, because it's not federal government matter, it's also state and all that.
And see how they
let them brainstorm on what to do to attend to this issue. It will catch up with us in the next 5-10 years, and the Boko Haram will be a child's play, what we are seeing today. Those are the places I think the minister should pay attention to.
There is a National Council on Education.
Yes, they should pay attention to this, and then we'll focus on it. Yeah. Let them let 16 years be for our children. Let us not create the crisis where you have people who are depressed, people who have mental health issues, because they are not allowed to, express themselves. And no harm is done. And there's nothing that has established that, when they come at 16, then you do any harm to them. But the harm will be done to them if you stretch it to 18. So we'll take it holistically from Yahaya Bello's $800 and something $1,000. Those primary schools, when they are discussing this matter of out-of-school children, how those schools will be upgraded, such that we don't have children study under the trees in dilapidated buildings, will also be resolved. That is where our focus should be now. And leave 16, 18 years, let that one rest. It's not a problem as we speak.
Okay. Well, let's take another subject. As for the $800,000 you're talking about, I get the moral point, but the EFCC will still need to prove in court that the money is from the coffers of the organization,
and not from a personal thing.
We can't establish.
And sorry, Dr. Bati, you did make a point earlier on about this dollarization of the naira.
Yes.
Whilst it's not good for the naira and it appears bad morally, we need to be careful. It's economics. The reason why people are using dollars is because the naira is not stable, because it doesn't give certainty. If we want to solve that problem, we cannot legislate our way out of it. We have to stabilize the naira and give it confidence. In other countries why they don't use the naira is because their currency is strong enough. The market is amoral. The market is self-centered and logical. It doesn't follow that.
Yemi Cardoso, CBN governor, says that from being the worst performing currency in the world, the naira is now the best performing currency in the world.
Sustainability will be the challenge.
The index.
Let us see for how long this is sustained. We'll all be happy. We'll all jubilate. We'll all, dance mukulumuke if there is sustainability.
Okay, let's go to Ekiti State, where there is an interesting development. Ekiti State has emerged as the second state to float its own electricity regulatory body after the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission announced that Enugu State has signified its intention to fully exit the control of the Apex industry regulator. Couch designed after the Enugu model, the Commission, in a document signed by its chairman, Sanusi Garuba, and Commissioner Legal Licensing and Compliance, Dafe Akpeneye, stated that the action was in compliance with the amended Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Electricity Act of 2023 as amended. President Muhammadu Buhari had in March 2023 assented to the law, which now empowers states to license, generate, transmit, and distribute electricity. While his successor, Bola Tinubu, has also made at least 2 amendments to the law since he took over the reins of power in May 2023. Well, this is a story. This about decentralizing, the value chain within the electricity sector. We've had one state, Enugu, taking the lead. We now have Ekiti State, and its governor, Biodun Oyebanji, have both been praised by the Nigerian Governors Forum for taking the initiative. What it means, in simple terms, is that these state governments can fix electricity tariffs in their states. In Ekiti State, they have an electricity bureau. Even when there is linkage with the national grid, they have control over, electricity generation, transmission, distribution. Are we likely to have more states also doing this, considering how important power generation is to the development process? Let me start with you this time around, Professor Aworawo.
I'm very happy with what is happening. This is what we have advocated for in a long time, and we are happy that positive things are happening along this line. And when people talk about the federal system not being truly federal, let there be a truly federal system. This is the way to go. When the other levels of government are able to take initiative and then do this kind of things, unlike the previous law that simply tied the hands of states in this regard. So we commend the Ekiti State for going, following, the way of Enugu that, did that earlier. We're expecting Lagos, Ogun, Delta, Rivers, states with extensive, industrial, especially Lagos. In fact, I wasn't even expecting that Lagos would either be first or next or second. Governor Sanwo-Olu is following what is happening, and we are confident that Lagos would kickstart its own very soon, because it's a major thing we have identified that, of course, everybody can see that power is an impediment to industrialization, rapid economic development. And since when the federal is doing its own, since states are now coming up with theirs, this will just be a catalyst for rapid economic development moving forward.
Professor Kila?
Well, why didn't for Lagos? I mean, you had a Nugun and you had a Ekiti. Maybe the next will be a Boeing, because they seem to be going by the state start with the letter E rather than any other thing. I think it's a good thing. I mean, those of us who have advocated for decentralization of this and many other things cannot but be happy about it. You talked about the ability to decide autonomously their own tariffs. What we really want to hope for in this new development as citizens and consumers is actually more supply. Let us hope with their entrance, it's not just about tariff, it also means that they can generate and distribute enough power so that those states will have better than other states. If the states that have gone this path are able to show the rest of the country that because they've gone to this decentralized system, power is more stable in their states, there's no doubt, Professor Aworawo, that all other states will follow suit. But you're right. I would have thought Lagos would start it as well, but I'm sure that Governor Sanwo-Olu is listening, and those around him as well. I think it's time, because really, before now, Lagos was the one who would have had that idea and could not move forward. But as long as it is not just about tariff management, and it is more about power and availability of power and stability of power, then it's a very welcome development. If it's just to manage the tariff, let us stay the way we were.
Okay, let's take our final topic of the day. President Tinubu has launched the first phase of a consumer credit scheme, a program designed to offer credit facilities to working citizens in the country. According to a statement issued by Presidential Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, in Abuja on Tuesday, the initiative will be implemented in stages, beginning with civil servants before being extended to the general public. Well, Professor Kila, you lived abroad. A consumer credit scheme. You think it will work here?
Well, we have to make it work.
People take loans
and don't pay.
And they won't pay. Where people think anything that comes through government in any form is their entitlement or national away. Cake.
Yes.
Better still.
Well, I think we have to make it work. There's a story I like to tell in my economics class. When they were going to start the American Express, the first credit card system, they had this kind of doubt that you have that. Can we grant people credit because they were students? The conclusion at the end of the day is that overall, in the world, there are more good people than bad people. And what we need to do is...
In the world?
Yes.
In Nigeria?
No, in human being. Even in Nigeria. In Nigeria, there are more good people than bad people. What is wrong with the Nigerian system is that the Nigerian system does not reward good people. So we have to find a way to make this credit thing work, and it has to reward the good people. Those who default, and unfortunately there will be those who try to default, the penalty has to be swift but clear. And, first, it's a good thing. Now, actually, let me say that I am delighted, even though I'm not great about government initiative, I prefer the private sector, but I'm very happy about this one because the idea is a very good idea. This is the way to fight corruption. This is the way to fight uncertainty in the country. This is a very good thing. And I'm delighted by the board because the chairman of that board is somebody who has for years advocated for something like this. It's a very good appointment because it shows you that they've linked, what's that thing they like to say in Nigeria? Square something in one hole.
Square pegs in square holes.
Square peg in square hole. I've never understood that thing very well. But I like the idea that this man who has always gone for that thing is the one called to chairman, Otumba Abdul something. He's the one called to chair. That's a very good thing. I think that, and I had a bit of doubt when I saw they were starting with civil servant. I was taking the constitutionality of that and how, everything we do should be erga omnes, i.e. should be universal for everybody. But I think it's good because really, civil servants are the ones who definitely pay tax in this country. So if government is doing something that they can benefit from, I think those who pay tax, know that by default are the taxpayers, it is a good thing to start from them and others can join. And also in terms of data. The way forward, I will add to this, if we want to make it work, since it's government doing it, I think there should be preferential treatment for made in Nigerian products and made in Nigerian services to be able to use this profit. Because that way, you're not just helping the consumers, you have a chance to create a kind of holistic approach that will also help the Nigerian economic system as well. Otherwise, the risk is the money goes away. And let's link it. And I will add to this, if they're going to listen to me, rather than dole out the money to people, what should be done is a credit system where you don't actually see the money. What you see is an exchange for goods and services. So that way we don't have money flowing in the system. What we have is production and exchange of things. So more fiscal than monetary intervention.
Professor Aworawo?
Yeah, I think that from what I've read, it's not a doling of cash. Yeah. Yes, I think what they've said is goods, services. Let's hope they keep to that. It's a good scheme. It's Nigeria is one of the few countries where we don't have a consumer credit scheme, so it's a good one. As to why civil servants, we are starting with civil servants, I would also imagine that in addition to the fact that they pay taxes, they are the ones that government is able to hold.
Data.
They can't run away. If you run away, you have since you are a civil servant, you also have your pension and all that. So they have a way of getting their money. I think they want to start with that, see how it works before they add those they cannot trace, who will disappear without a fixed address. I want to pray and hope that it won't be one of those schemes that will start and will be fugacious. Yeah. We'll be there today and tomorrow it is abandoned.
That is the cynicism of Dr.
Yes.
We just have to make it work. We shouldn't start thinking it might not work.
Yes.
What we need to do is to get everything to make it work.
Exactly.
So we can shame people like
that is
Dr.
not shame.
It's actually shame. Because the man started by saying
you can understand because we have many schemes like this that didn't see light of day. So our advocacy will be to ensure that it does see light of day and it remains permanent.
It remains permanent, yes. And shame the ones that have doubt.
Anyway, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Professor Aworawo, and also thank you, Professor Anthony Kila. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.